You have lived in your body for 60, 70, maybe 80 years. You know the rhythm of your own health better than any medical chart ever could. You know when a bad meal is just a bad meal, and you know when a headache is just a lack of sleep. But there is a specific, quiet signal, a subtle shift in your baseline, that occurs in the months leading up to a pancreatic cancer diagnosis. It is not the dramatic weight loss or the yellowing of the skin that you see in textbooks. Those are symptoms of a late-stage crisis. I'm talking about a whisper of change that often happens 6 months earlier. The problem is, most people, and honestly, many doctors, dismiss it as simply getting older or a minor digestive fluke. But if you are watching this, it's because you have that nagging feeling that something isn't right. Today, we are going to look at exactly what that one thing is, why it happens, and more importantly, how you can stop dismissing your own intuition and start getting the answers you deserve. Let's be clear. I am not here to incite fear. Fear paralyzes. It does not protect you. My goal today is to give you the clinical detective work you need to be your own best advocate. Most people wait for the body to scream. They wait for pain that doesn't stop or jaundice that makes the eyes yellow. But by then, the pancreatic cancer has often moved well beyond the point of early detection. But here is what most people don't realize. The pancreas doesn't just break overnight. It is a workhorse organ. It slowly loses its ability to function, and it leaves behind breadcrumbs, tiny, physiological clues, that you are likely living with right now. Most of my patients who eventually receive a diagnosis tell me, "Doctor, looking back, I knew. I just didn't know what I knew." That uncertainty is dangerous. Today, we bridge the gap between "I feel off" and "I need to investigate this." To understand why this signal is so often missed, you have to understand where the pancreas sits. It is a small glandular organ, about 6 inches long, tucked deep behind your stomach and in front of your spine. In medical terms, we call it retroperitoneal. That's a fancy way of saying it's buried in the back of your abdomen. Because it's so deep, it doesn't have the luxury of giving us early physical signs. If you have a liver issue, your skin might show it. If you have a skin issue, you see it. But the pancreas? It's completely hidden from the outside world. It functions as the CEO of your metabolism. It handles 2 major jobs. It creates enzymes to break down your food, and it creates hormones like insulin to manage your blood sugar. When a tumor begins to form, even a tiny one, it disrupts these 2 systems long before it blocks a duct or causes pain. But here is where most people Because these symptoms manifest as digestive issues or sugar spikes, they are often labeled as digestive aging. Quick favor before we dive into the specific mechanism of that metabolic shift. Drop your city, state, or country in the comments below. When I see where people are watching from, it helps me understand the different health conversations happening in your communities. I read every one of these, and it helps me tailor this advice for the real-world experiences you're having where you live. Now, stay with me, because we're about to look at the exact mechanism of this change, and it is something almost everyone mistakes for something else. I want you to imagine a patient of mine. Let's call her Sarah. She was 68, active, enjoyed her garden, and took great pride in keeping her household running like clockwork. About 6 months before she walked into my office for her diagnosis, Sarah started noticing what she called the new normal. It wasn't a sudden, jarring event. It was a slow creep. She noticed that her favorite meals, a simple piece of grilled salmon and steamed vegetables, started to make her feel uncomfortably full. Just a few bites and she felt like she'd eaten a Thanksgiving feast. Then, she noticed she was losing a little bit of weight, maybe 5 pounds over 2 months. She was thrilled at first. She thought, "Finally, my metabolism is shifting." She wasn't dieting, and she wasn't exercising more, but the clothes fit better. Then came the change in her blood sugar. Sarah had never been diabetic, but she started feeling shaky in the afternoons. When she checked her glucose, it was suddenly running high. Most people, and I want you to listen closely to this, would do exactly what Sarah did. She blamed the aging process. She thought, well, digestion slows down as you get older, and everyone's blood sugar gets a little finicky in their late 60s. But that was the one thing. It wasn't aging. It was her pancreas, struggling to do its job as a tumor, microscopic and quiet, was beginning to interfere with its function. Why did Sarah experience those specific symptoms? It comes down to those two jobs I mentioned earlier: enzyme production and hormone regulation. When the pancreas begins to struggle, the first things to go are the background services. You see, your pancreas is constantly producing enzymes to help you break down food. If a tumor, even a small one, blocks the tiny ducts where these enzymes flow into your gut, your body suddenly struggles to digest fat. That is exactly why Sarah felt full after just a few bites. Your body is telling you, I can't break this down, so I'm shutting off your hunger signals. And then, there is the glucose connection. This is where the one thing becomes undeniable. If you are over 60 and you suddenly develop type 2 diabetes, out of nowhere, without a change in diet, without a family history, and without significant weight gain, that is a massive red flag. In the medical community, we call this new-onset diabetes. And let me tell you, it is one of the most under-recognized early warning signals for pancreatic issues. It happens because the tumor is putting pressure on the cells that produce insulin. The pancreas is literally being choked off before it can even show symptoms of pain. So, if we distill it down to the one thing that people notice 6 months before, the thing that most people dismiss, it is unexplained metabolic instability. It is not just a stomach ache, it is a pattern. It is the combination of sudden, unexplained weight loss that you didn't work for, new-onset glucose intolerance or sudden swings in your blood sugar, and early satiety, feeling stuffed after barely eating a meal. And here is the contrarian truth that most people don't realize. The one thing is rarely a sharp, stabbing pain. By the time you feel that deep, boring pain in the middle of your back, the cancer has often already grown large enough to push against the spine. The whisper I'm talking about, the one you can actually catch 6 months earlier, is this metabolic shift. It's the feeling of your body's internal chemistry changing while you're sitting at the dinner table. You might think, well, maybe I just have a sensitive stomach. But if you have to ask yourself, why is my digestion acting differently than it did even 6 months ago? That is the question you need to take seriously. But wait, don't stop watching and don't panic. I need you to understand that this is not a diagnostic tool for you to use on yourself and then decide you have a terminal illness. That is how we spiral into unnecessary anxiety. The vast majority of the time, digestive changes in your 60s and 70s are related to aging, or dietary choices, or even medication side effects. However, the reason I am sharing this is because of the diagnostic gap. The gap between a symptom appearing and a patient getting a scan is where the most damage is done. Most people wait for the jaundice, that yellowing of the skin or eyes, which happens when a tumor blocks the bile duct. By the time you are yellow, you are in a crisis. But the metabolic shift, the weight loss, the blood sugar spike, the fullness, that happens months before the yellowing. That is your window of opportunity. That is your time to be the advocate. I want to stop for a second and challenge your belief about your doctor's office. Many seniors I talk to tell me, I don't want to be a bother to my doctor. I don't want to be the patient who comes in complaining about a little indigestion. I need you to hear this. Your doctor would rather investigate a false alarm than miss a real signal. You are not a bother. You are the primary stakeholder in your own health. If you feel that your body's baseline has shifted, you have a right to ask for an investigation. And no, you don't need a $10,000 scan tomorrow. You need a baseline blood panel and a conversation about what new onset really means. I want to back this up with the actual science because when you walk into your doctor's office, you shouldn't just be a person with a hunch. You should be a person with information. A significant study published in The Lancet Oncology, a journal that is essentially the gold standard in cancer research, looked at thousands of patients to understand the timeline of symptoms. The researchers found a very specific, undeniable pattern. Among patients diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, there was a dramatic uptick in new diagnoses of type 2 diabetes in the 6 to 18 months leading up to the cancer discovery. It wasn't just a coincidence. The data showed that for individuals over the age of 50, a new diagnosis of diabetes is not just a sugar problem, It is a potential biological red flag that the pancreas is failing. Another study from the Journal of the National Cancer Institute confirmed that even subtle changes in blood glucose levels, not just full-blown diabetes, but just impaired fasting glucose, often preceded the diagnosis by months or even a year. Why am I telling you this? Because if you have been told, "Oh, your blood sugar is creeping up, it's just part of getting older," you are being given a partial answer. You are being told that your body is wearing out, but the science suggests that sometimes it's not wearing out, it's sounding an alarm. And that is an alarm we can investigate. Here is the part that most people miss, and this is why people get frustrated. Many doctors don't connect these dots because they are looking at silos. Your primary doctor looks at your blood sugar. Your gastroenterologist looks at your stomach pain. Your nutritionist looks at your weight loss. No one is looking at the system as a whole. This is where you become the coordinator of your own care. You are the only person who sees all these changes at once. You are the only one who knows that the weight loss, the digestive fullness, and the blood sugar swings are happening in the same time frame. But we need to move from feeling worried to collecting data. Before you even book the appointment, you need to arm yourself with evidence. Doctors are busy. They have 15 minutes to solve your problem. If you walk in and say, "I feel weird," they will likely run the standard tests, find nothing, and send you home. That is not enough. For the next 2 weeks, I want you to start a baseline journal. It doesn't need to be complicated. Just write down 3 things every single day: what you ate and how you felt 30 minutes later, your weight first thing in the morning, and your activity level versus your fatigue. This is your objective proof. It removes the subjectivity of "I feel off" and replaces it with "I have lost 4 pounds in 14 days despite eating regularly, and I experience bloating after every meal." Now, how do you have the conversation without sounding like you're Googling symptoms? You use the baseline approach. You walk into that exam room and you say this: "Doctor, I'm concerned about a change in my baseline. I've noticed a combination of unexplained weight loss and digestive changes that are new for me. I've read that new-onset metabolic changes can sometimes be related to pancreatic function, and I want to rule that out as a precaution. Can we look into this?" That phrasing is magic for 2 reasons. First, it's professional and non-alarmist. Second, it gives the doctor a specific path to follow. You aren't asking them to find the cancer. You are asking them to rule out a concern. If they dismiss it, you ask for a pancreatic enzyme test or a baseline ultrasound. And if they still say wait and see, you get a second opinion. Never apologize for being cautious with your own life. But what happens if they do test you and everything comes back normal? Are you crazy? Are you making this up? Absolutely not. It means you have successfully ruled out the worst-case scenario, and that is a victory. It means we go back to the drawing board to find out what is causing the symptoms, whether it's a food sensitivity, a thyroid issue, or something else entirely. But you never, ever accept "it's just old age" as a final diagnosis for a symptom that is affecting your quality of life. I want you to take a deep breath. We've covered a lot of ground today, and I know that talking about pancreatic health can feel heavy. But I want to remind you of something fundamental. The goal of this conversation was never to send you home worrying about your future. It was to give you the tools to protect it. When you understand how your body communicates, when you learn to stop writing off digestive trouble or sugar spikes as simply the inevitable tax of getting older, you stop being a passive passenger in your own health journey. You become the driver. Most people, the vast majority, who experience the symptoms we talked about today will not have pancreatic cancer. They might have a treatable intolerance, a manageable metabolic shift, or a simple issue that a specialist can fix in a single afternoon. But by paying attention, by keeping that baseline log, and by being willing to ask the tough questions, you ensure that you don't miss the whisper that could be a signal. That is not living in fear, that is living with wisdom. There is a saying in my field: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. The same applies to your health advocacy. You cannot get back the time you spent wondering or the months you spent hoping things would just go away. But you can own your next chapter. If you feel that something is off, Do not wait for a dramatic symptom to force your hand. Use the tools we discussed. Start that log. See your doctor. Present your data. Take back control. Because that woman, or that man, who values their health, who respects their body enough to listen to it, that is exactly the person who deserves to enjoy the life they have worked so hard to build. If this video gave you the clarity or the confidence to take a step for your health today, please hit that like button. It tells YouTube that this information is important, and it helps get this message out to other seniors who might be feeling that same whisper of change, but don't yet know how to articulate it to their doctor. And if you want to stay in the loop on practical, honest, science-backed health conversations, the kind that help you understand your body rather than just managing it, make sure you subscribe. I share these deep dives every single week, because I believe that the more you know, the better you can live. Thank you for trusting me with your time today. Keep listening to your body, keep advocating for your health, and I will see you in the next video. Stay well.